All right. Welcome to another episode of One Athlete, One Day. We are working through Zack Tremblay's program here. So we're going to start with our first movement here, which is a band-assisted strict chest-to-bar pull-up. So the purpose behind this is that we are developing top-end pulling strength, and specifically I'm working with Zack on a strict chest to bar progression, and you'll see that theme carried later on in this session. But we noticed that there's a pretty big discrepancy between his pulling strength chin over bar and pulling strength chest to bar. That impacts high volume butterfly chest to bar pull-ups. I believe that it's also impacting some of the ability for ring muscle ups and bar muscle ups to withstand more fatigue. So it's a little bit harder for him to be grindy through those middle portions of those movements without the strength profile in that scap retracted short bicep position. So we're trying to make sure that he's getting a top end of the strength spectrum stimulus here. And then like I said, we'll fill in some more of that later. We're following that with a handstand push-up strength piece. So last week we did a shorter number of strict handstand push-ups with a tempo. This week we're going to take away the tempo and we're going to give a specific depth that we want him to hit. We're not expecting massive numbers on this first portion, but because I'm not seeing that, and because Zack has historically responded pretty well to higher numbers of pressing volume, we're going to complement our absolute strength handstand push-up with the deficit kipping handstand push-up using a tempo. So that tempo is going to distribute the eccentric loading evenly across the entire range of motion, which is going to give him a little bit more opportunity to get strong at the bottom of that position. So similar to the strict chest to bar pull-up, his strict handstand push-up capacity to the floor is solid, and then when we get a little bit further relative to his peers, it falls off a little bit more. So we're actively spending time developing that. And my belief is that as he continues to develop that type of capacity, we're going to see even better strict handstand push-ups to the floor. So this is kind of one of those things that we've developed over the course of the time we've spent training together, where originally strict handstand push-ups to the floor were problematic, and now we're taking that to the next level, making sure that because he is often able to qualify and compete at things like Fittest of the Coast, and because we're trying to take that next step into online semifinals and things like that, we need to be prepared for some of these higher level movements in order to have him ready to thrive at those types of competitions. From there, we're going to move into our metabolic conditioning. So this is a classic VO2 max structure. So basically 2-to-1 work to rest. The work bouts stay relatively short. So 80 seconds at a time. We are going to accumulate what this is about 8 minutes per, so 16 total minutes worth of very strong effort work. So 7-minute type effort. These movements are all predicated on their ability to drive heart rate and respiration rate. So I don't think the devil's press and the thrusters need any explaining as far as what they are capable of doing from a heart rate response. But I am giving a very strong man, someone who can power clean over 300 pounds, 35-pound devil's press, and 35-pound thrusters. The purpose behind that is I want there to be constant, fast movement. I don't want anything to happen from a weight or a strength perspective that limits the ability for him to keep moving. I want it to be entirely a central stimulus. So the only thing that's limiting is the acidity accumulation in the system, breathing, heart rate, those kinds of limitations, as opposed to it's getting hard to lock out the thrusters on a devil's press or on the devil's press or the thrusters there. So we're choosing those movements. The box jump overs are something that we noticed in a recent competition kind of have a tendency to break down on him under fatigue. So this is a good opportunity to expose that, knowing that we're getting this 40-second break every 2 minutes. We're probably going to be able to coordinate the movement a little bit better than we would if we just threw it into a straight Metcon. Moving into the next portion, we are choosing movements that are a little bit easier to hang on to as far as the dumbbells are concerned. So I'm not too concerned about his ability to do 6 dumbbell power cleans or the 8 front rack lunges. The shuttle runs are a movement that, because our target competition every year is fittest of the coast, and that movement has come out every year for the past few years, and it tends to be one of the weaker movements in the sport for him. We're going to make sure that we're getting exposure to it, and specifically I'm putting it second here because I want him to already be pre-fatigued and still teach the body how to continue to move fast under those levels of distress. Moving into our accessory work. So we kind of mentioned the ring muscle up earlier. In general, whenever an athlete has some ring muscle up issues, I have them do a technical day, a strength accessory day, and then a capacity-based day. In this case, this is our accessory day. So we're going full range of motion ring push-ups. My philosophy with ring muscle-ups in general is that the more comfortable an athlete can feel on the rings, the more likely they are to express their strength on the ring. So giving them the ring push-up, I want the external turnout at the top because I think that the ability to control ring rotation as you turn over a ring muscle-up really does play a huge role in your ability to hang on to decent sets. So I think we've seen a lot of athletes who kind of stay with their thumbs facing inwards as they go and turn the muscle up over. Some athletes can get away with it, but I think most athletes have to be able to turn the rings to have the palms facing each other when they catch. So this is starting to teach that slight turnout, giving him a little bit better control over the rings and what that's doing. Last week we did ring push-ups and the rep range was a little bit too easy. So this week we're just adding the weight vest. That's the purpose behind that, is mostly just to meet him where he's at from a strength perspective. The hinge ring row. To me, this is one of the movements that feels the most like a ring muscle up turnover should. So if you're able to hinge at the hips, keep the knees and the feet down while pulling, that almost perfectly mimicked the way that I felt when I would do ring muscle ups. And so I'm trying to teach him to dissociate the upper body from the lower body with strength while having the lower body engaged in some capacity, right? So we're not supported by a bench or anything else. Like, the lower body still is working to some extent. And so having the ability to hinge at the hips, create that turnover type pattern is something that I think is going to help him translate the strength that we've been doing, the technique work that we've been doing, and the capacity work that we're doing. But this is just going to help the technical side of things continue to develop, and developing strength in a sport-specific pattern is always a good thing. Front leaning rest on the ring. So now we're coming into some trunk anti-movement here. So we are resisting extension in the FLR. We're resisting flexion in the Sorensen. And we're just taking the opportunity to work a little bit more on control of the ring. So again, keeping a slight external rotation on the rings, just reinforcing that strength in the shoulders. And specifically with the rings here, like having the ability to do this on a lower grade contraction compared to the ring push-up, which is fatiguing from the press. This is an isometric, so we're able to hold a little bit easier, or most people can hold a little bit easier with this movement. The Sorensen row, I am giving him the dumbbell row. The dumbbell is going to give us a full retraction range of motion, and give us a little bit more complement to that horizontal pull that is necessary to be good at chest to bar pull-ups. So I think a lot of people think about chest to bar pull-ups exclusively as a vertical pull, but in reality, when you start to think about the butterfly movement and what that does to your body line, because you end up leaned back and driving the hips, a lot of your pulling ends up happening in a horizontal pattern. And because it is happening with a posterior chain contraction, so the glutes driving, we're getting kind of a similar pattern with the Sorensen hold. So we're kind of mixing in our midline work with things that are going to translate to some of our bigger priorities in the sport. Hopefully this was interesting. If you have any questions, please comment on the video below. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys.